If you had to give a list of the top 10 strongmen in the world as of today, who would be in your list? And more than that, could you put them in an order? Could you rank them from 1 to 10? And if you can't, there's no need to worry, because Rogue Fitness have the answer for us. We are going to take a look at the Rogue rankings, number 1 through to number 10, and then discuss whether or not we think they're accurate. And spoiler alert, I don't think they are. Also guys, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the videos I drop in the future. Going from 10th place all the way to 1st place, we have Mateusz Kieliszkowski, Austin Andrade, Bobby Thompson, Tom Evans, Lucas Hatton, Hathor Bjornsson, Trey Mitchell, Evan Singleton, Tom Stoltman, and then, last but not least, Mitchell Hooper. There's a few more notable names on there as well. We have the likes of Rain O'Neill, the current world's strongest man, down in 20th position behind the likes of Alexei Novikov in 13th. We have Martins in 25th place ahead of the likes of Luke Richardson, who is all the way down in 37th position, which is actually the furthest down he could possibly be. That is the last position on the list. Before we dive into what we make of the rankings, we need to take a look at how the athletes actually accumulate their points. It is quite difficult to decipher though. So they give points based on what are considered the big 4 shows, that being the Rogue Invitational, the Arnold Strongman Classic, the World's Strongest Man, and the Strongest Man on Earth. And a win at any of these shows gets you 100 points. Participation, depending on placement, also earns you points, but it's extremely difficult to tell how it actually works. For example, Evan Singleton got 100 points for winning the Strongest Man on Earth, but he also has 1,800 total points, so 1,800 total points for participating in the Strongest Man on Earth. But there's nowhere that tells you, there's no table that tells you how they work it out. So we just sort of have to go with the fact that these are the points that they have. It does say that the rankings aren't perfect and that it remains an invitational, so they reserve the right to invite anybody that they wish to their contest, and it works the same for the CrossFit as well. The major drawback that I see in a ranking system such as this one is that it only takes into account the 4 major shows. It doesn't have the likes of Europe's Strongest Man or America's or North America's Strongest Man involved in it, and both of those are major shows. Both the Europe's title and mainly the North America's title are major titles in my opinion, but it doesn't take any of those into account, nor does it take into account any of the other Giants live shows or any other promotion outside of the 4 major competitions. The issue with Strongman is that it is very difficult to rank the top 10, as you don't always have the same athletes competing against each other. You have people coming in and people going out. It's not like the football Premier League, for example, where you have 20 teams each season that play each other twice, and then whoever's at the top is at the top. It can't work the same as that. The closest thing we have is the Strongman Champions League, but even then, not every athlete competes in every event, so it still doesn't quite work out. Now, I'm sure there's some people who will say you can just look at the final of World's Strongest Man and there's your top 10. But to those people, I say, grow up. Unless you've been in the sport for, a short period of time, then you should understand that the top 10 of World's Strongest Man, or the 10 athletes that make the final, aren't necessarily the top 10 guys in the world. That doesn't mean that I think the winner of the show doesn't deserve to be the winner of the show. It just means that the top 10 aren't necessarily the best 10. And that's largely down to the group stages. And I personally am probably in the minority of the people who actually enjoys the group stages at World's Strongest Man. But does that mean I think it's the best and the fairest way to run a strongman competition? Not at all. This year we had Eddie Williams and Pavlo Cordiaca make it into the 10-man final out of 25 athletes. But if we look at their placings, compared to all 25 athletes, they wouldn't have made it in the top 10. Tristan Hoth would have been 8th, Maxime would have been 10th, Lucas Hatton would have been 11th, and Nick Gardione would have tied with Pavlo Cordiaca in 12th position. And for the record, I love Eddie Williams. I don't really know anybody that doesn't enjoy watching him that is a strongman fan. And he deserved his spot in the final. He did exactly what he had to do in order to get to the final. But for the likes of Tristan, Max, Lucas, and Nick, they probably feel hard done by because they were above him in the standings, yet none of those guys made it to the final. And like I said, it's not Eddie Williams' fault. That's how the group stages work. Some people are going to get in when they maybe don't quite deserve to be there, and some guys are going to get knocked out when they do deserve to be there. So if the Rogue rankings aren't correct and the World's Strongest Man final isn't correct, then what is the correct answer? Truthfully, I don't think we can give a correct answer, but that doesn't mean we can't try to give a correct answer, or at least what I believe is the correct answer. And that's exactly what I'm going to do today. I'm going to go from 10th to 1st and give my reason for each and every single one. And you can feel free to get in the comment section down below and disagree with me, as I'm sure a lot of you probably will. In at number 10, I'm going for Tristan Hoth. And to be honest, you could probably argue him higher than 10th, but I believe the 9 people I have in front of him just edge him a little bit. But let's take a look at why I have him in the top 10 in the first place. So he should have made the World's Strongest Man final this year. He got unlucky by way of his group. He made the final last year and placed 5th in the final. He just recently placed 7th at the Strongest Man on Earth, and last year he placed 13th at the same competition, and he pretty much doubled his points total as well. He placed 2nd at last year's Magnus Ver and won it in 2023, which is a brutal contest. He also recently won Canada's Strongest Man, beating the likes of Maxime Boudreau and Gabriel Reaume, where he won 3 out of 6 events. He tied 1st on another one, 2nd in a different event, and 3rd in the other event, and he was 12 points clear of 2nd place in the overall standings. He's just an all-round solid strongman, and he can mix it with the top 10 in the world any given day, and that is extremely difficult to be able to do. I'm also trying to keep it within sort of the last 2 years. I feel going back further than that just isn't really fair, as people get injured and new guys come into the scene, or people make improvements, people stagnate. So you really have to try and keep it within the last 2 years in order to make it a fair list. I personally believe if a list is going to be done, like an official one of a top 10, it should be based upon the past 2 full competitive seasons. In at number 9, I have changed my mind. I did have Luke Richardson, but I've changed it for Paddy Haynes. I just feel that since, I believe, this time last year, where Paddy plays like 9th or 10th at a Giants Live, he hasn't been out of the top 5 in any event that he's done. He pushed Hathor Bjornsson recently in Iceland Strongest Man, where he was a guest lifter. In the most recent Giants Live, the World Deadlift Championships, he was half a point off the podium in a show that he said himself isn't great events for him, and it wasn't great events for him, and he was half a point off the podium, proving that he's consistent across the board. And his pressing, people say his pressing, he can't press, but he can. The Viking press, he got 10 reps, which is the same as what Hathor Bjornsson got. It's the same as a lot of the other athletes got. So his pressing is coming along very well. He won England's Strongest Man. He was 4th at Britain's Strongest Man. He was 2nd, I believe, at Europe's Strongest Man. 5th place at World's Strongest Man. He has put in a great season all together. And although I do believe on their day, if both of them competed against each other, Luke would come out on top, recently it's been Paddy's day more often than it's been Luke's day. So for me, I believe he deserves a spot in the top 10 strongmen in the world right now. And it's crazy to say that because I'm basing it off the past 2 years. And a year ago, Paddy wouldn't have been anywhere really near my top 10. He would have been probably in the top 20, but top 10, no, he wasn't getting near it. But now, I think he is cementing his place inside the top 10. 8th place, I have Reno now, and this was probably the hardest person to place because he's the current world's strongest man, so you would think he has to be right up there, but he's just not proved it in enough of the major competitions. Now, he's done, I believe, 10 international competitions, and I think he's won 8 of them. I'm pretty certain he's won 8 of them, which is just an absolutely mental return in terms of the amount of competitions that he's done. He can definitely climb this list. I just think that he needs to prove it at the other major competitions as well. The Strongman Champions League, he's far too good for that competition, unfortunately. And I think the Strongman Champions League is a great promotion. It's great shows, has really good athletes in it. But the best athletes in the world don't tend to compete there. And he needs to focus on the major titles and proving himself against the other top athletes year in, year out at every single show. Because I do believe he can. I don't think his top end strength is quite there yet. But I think that he can be a real threat at all of the major competitions. From one of the hardest people to place to one of the easiest people to place, and that is Austin Andrade in 7th position. I just feel that he has solidified himself inside the top 10. He's not quite cracked the top 5 yet, but he's definitely in the top 10. He's consistently up there in the major competitions. Yeah, he had a bit of a bad World's Strongest Man this year, but in the previous World's Strongest Man, he placed 7th in the final. Before that, he won the Shore Classic Open. Then after that World's Strongest Man, he went to the Strongest Man on Earth, where he placed, I think, 4th or 5th in his first competition. And he placed recently 4th, I want to say. Was it 4th? Yes, so he placed 4th at the Arnold, and he placed 4th at the Strongest Man on Earth this year as well. So he's yet to make that podium, but he's right there, and I think give it another year, we're going to see him on some of the podiums. Another guy that I think we will be seeing on the podiums is Trey Mitchell in 6th place. And Trey and Austin could have been swapped around, as they have been in a lot of competitions recently. If anything, Austin has got Trey's number more often than Trey has got Austin's. However, Trey still has the sort of money in the bank, I suppose you could say, with winning two Shore Classics. He's been in more finals. Just the longevity of Trey in the sport, coming back from injury, that's what I've placed him above Austin at the moment. But with the way that Austin is improving, he could easily get into that 6th, for me anyway. He could get into that 6th position over Trey, but Trey could also keep pushing higher up. So those two, I always enjoy watching those two in the same competition, because they're always very similar. They're good at the same sort of things. They're bad at the same sort of things. So it's just always an interesting competition to watch. In at number 5, now, this is really difficult, but I have gone for Hathor Bjornsson in 5th position. Let me just argue my case as to why he is in 5th, because I also believe he could be in 3rd, but the reason why is that this year he's done the Arnolds where he placed 3rd. He was 7.5 points out of 2nd place. He then broke the deadlift world record twice, but he's missed World's Strongest Man. He's missed the Strongest Man on Earth. So 2 out of the 3 major titles that have taken place this year, he's not been there. And we're talking about strongman as a whole, not just deadlift. He's not just a deadlift guy. He really isn't. He recently broke the deadlift world record with 510 and then went on to win the full show, which is an incredible feat of strength in itself. However, this year as an overall strongman, he hasn't been as good as the guys who I have got above him in the list. That's just in my personal opinion. Yes, he beat them, some of them, at the Arnolds, but they've been there at World's Strongest Man. They've been there at the Strongest Man on Earth. He has not. He's been chasing the deadlift world record, which I understand, and that's fair enough, but I really hope at the Rogue Invitational he brings his best overall, all-round package, and then I can chuck him back up the list where he deserves to be. It's just, right now, I can't put him there. In 4th place, I have gone with the man that finished 2nd at the Arnolds and 2nd at the Strongest Man on Earth. That is Large Legs Benedict, Lucas Hatton. I just feel as though 4th place for him in my top 10. It's almost harsh, because I feel like he could be higher. If he had won the Strongest Man on Earth, he's probably in second position right now, but he didn't win the strongest man on earth. He's podiumed at the Arnold's. That was this year was his first Arnold's, wasn't it? Last year was the UK's. But he podiumed at the Arnold's, podiumed at the strongest man on earth last year, podiumed again this year. He's had a really, really good past 2 years, and he's cemented himself, for me, definitely cemented himself inside that top 5. If you take out the poor performance at World's Strongest Man and look at the other competitions that he's done, he's definitely right up there with he has an argument to be in the top 3, but the 3 that I've got above him have more of an argument, in my opinion. However, from what he says, the Rogue Invitational events are very good for him. The Arnold's be a good competition for him, so maybe he can win the Rogue, maybe he can win the Arnold's, and then it's hard to argue that he isn't in the top 1 and 2 in the world. Okay, now we get into the top 3, and I'm going to say my third and second at the same time. So in third, I've got Tom Stoltman, and in second, I've got Evan Singleton. And I'm going to argue my case, and that's why I've said them both at the same time. So firstly, if we look at the last 10 contests where these guys competed against each other, Tom has beat Evan 6 times. So 6-4 to Tom. I discounted the USA Giants Live because both of them pulled out after the first 2 events, but 2 of Tom's wins came over Evan when Evan got injured. However, injuries are part of the sport. One man falls off his broom, another man stays on. It's not hard to see who's the better flyer. That's a Harry Potter quote. But basically, one man gets injured, another man doesn't get injured. He wins. It's as simple as that. But even with this data in front of me, I still think Evan beats Tom in terms of who is the better strongman right now. I actually said after seeing Evan's performance at Giants Live Royal Albert Hall that if that was the shape he was in going into World's Strongest Man, it's a real shame that he got injured, because he definitely could have won that contest. With how the event shaped up, how everything went in terms of the final, I genuinely believe he would have won that. And that's all ifs, buts, and maybes. And we don't do that around here. We do absolutes. I'm just saying, he had a real good shot. And if he stays in that shape, if he continues on the form he's on, he's a real threat for next year's title. The way that I'm really going to argue my case, though, is we're going to look at the individual disciplines inside of strongman, or the main 5 to 6 disciplines anyway. So pressing. Tom is a better presser than Evan, but I don't think Evan is that far behind him in terms of points in overall standings, because Tom isn't one of the top guys, and Evan is not one of the bottom guys. He's also mid to higher pack. Tom is just slightly higher than him. Deadlifting, it comes up in pretty much every single show, and Evan is definitely the better of the 2 deadlifters. Moving events, I actually believe that Evan beats Tom on the majority of moving events, unless it's like a straight sandbag run. If you're talking farmer's walks, yokes, power stairs, even most loading medleys, I'd probably have Tom to win, but the majority of actual just moving events in general, I think Evan beats Tom most of the time. Grip, any type of grip, Evan is going to beat Tom. It's far better. Like I said about the log press, in terms of how close they would be, not log press, overhead press, I should say. In terms of how close they would be in terms of overhead, Evan is way ahead of Tom when it comes to anything to do with grip. And then we have Atlas stones, and Tom is much better when it comes to the heavier Atlas stones, but I think on just a full run where it sort of ends at 440-ish normally, I don't think Evan is that far behind when he's in good Atlas Stone shape. I know recently he hasn't had the best runs, and Atlas Stones definitely isn't the best event for him, but he can do a speedy run as long as the final stone isn't ridiculously heavy. It's heavy stones where Evan isn't as good, but in a run, Evan's decent. And given that all strongman competitions pretty much include those disciplines, it's hard to argue that Tom is better than Evan. And I'm sure people will hate what I just said, but I think give it a year, give it another year, and people will definitely be agreeing with me. We'll see, you'll see. Come back to this video in a year's time. And taking the top spot, there's only really one person it could be, and that's me. Fun fact, I am undefeated against every single person in this top 10, so I am number one. All jokes aside though, the best strongman in the world is Mitchell Hooper, and if you disagree with that, I think you're absolutely mental. I think you're letting your agenda get in the way. Granted, his past two performances weren't his best, but people seem to have an extremely short memory in this sport. It was less than a year ago that this guy was winning 5 event shows with 1 event to go. He didn't even have to come out and do the last event because he'd just win the first 4 events and then that's all he needed to do. The reason Strongest Man on Earth was so exciting this year is because Mitch wasn't there running away with it. If you look at the previous year, he won by, I think, over 10 clear points. It was between first and third, it was like 20 odd points. So that's why it was so exciting this year, because we didn't have him there. Do I think that he can come back and be as dominant as he was for the past 3 years? No, I personally don't think he can. Do I think he will come back and be the most consistent again? Yes, I do. And he's also said that he's going to be focusing on more of the major competitions and not just doing every single competition available to him, which is kind of scary because that means that if he only does, let's say, 5, 6, maybe 7 shows a year instead of 10 to 11 shows a year, then he's going to be in better shape for all of those shows. Mitch in better shape than he normally is going to be extremely, extremely difficult to beat. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we never see him off a podium again until he decides to retire. His podium streak was like 26 in a row. He basically didn't podium at the first show that he competed, which was World's Strongest Man, and then podiumed at every single show into the most recent one where he said, I need to take a break, because it was clearly suffering with injuries, suffering with mental health stuff, which we're not going to get into. It doesn't matter, but he's coming back for the Rogue Invitational, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him take the win. I would be shocked if he wasn't on the podium. And maybe he doesn't come back the same athlete. Maybe he can't do what he's done in the past 3 years. I'm not sure, but we're going to find out pretty soon. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Leave your top 10 down there. Remember, it's just an opinion. You're all right. You don't have to agree with me. That's fine. And if you asked me again in 2 weeks' time, I'd probably change my list anyway. Get down there, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time.